I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, here we are, West Point, Mississippi, and we've got today, we're right here at the end of February. Mm-hmm. Turkey season is looming out here. It's coming up.
It's here in a couple of like Florida, so
yeah, I think
Florida youth, right?
Yes, the youth. I think it has occurred, but we've got a guest. I'm looking over at the screen and through the magic of the internet, and this may be his first podcast via Zoom. I think this may be even his first experience on Zoom. But we've got Flip Pallot.
It absolutely is. No, it's not my first experience. I actually tried it earlier this week unsuccessfully in another attempt, but so this is my first successful experience with Zoom.
I would think that's a compliment that you've made it this long. It's kind of like that buddy that went as long as they could without getting an iPhone, so I'm proud of you for that.
No, it's all move. Richie. Believe me, I was stumbling around this morning until Richie showed up and got me straightened away.
Well, I tell you, when I look up at the screen and I see you there, it just makes me smile. You're one of my favorite people, and I've followed you for a long time. You've been a hero, and then back in November, we got to meet you and hang out with you in camp, and we got to see you skin a really nice buck there at Jeff Foxworthy's farm, and watching you shoot your longbow out there was almost a religious experience. He is incredibly talented with that thing.
Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons we wanted to have you back is you do your own thing. And I don't want to say you don't care what other people think. You probably care a little bit, but I care what you think. You get out there and you just do your thing, and it's always worked for you. So that's why we've got you back. We're going to cover you with questions here in a second.
Yeah, I got you guys fooled.
Well, Flip is our favorite 4-letter F word.
That's right.
For sure.
But it's interesting that you don't say it with 2 syllables like many people in the South do.
Flip.
No, we work on that around here. So, guys, before we get started down this, and Flip, I'd like you to comment on this as well, but I've been paying attention. A lot of guys, this time of year, there's just a resurgence in people wanting to trap, and they're trapping raccoons and coyotes, and they're doing it in the name of trying to have more poults, save the hens, and have more poults and whatnot. I saw a report of what you could sell some of these, if you were a trapper, what you could actually get for a skin. It was kind of shocking at how low these prices are. But I'm just going to run through a few of them. The average price on a red fox is $8.84. A coyote is $10.91. A raccoon is $3.41. Now, if you don't, and that's if you tanned, or that's if you.
So that's not in the green. That's you've done all the work to it.
$3.41.
Holy cow!
If he's green, you get $2.18. Take a guess, Mac, what you can get for a squirrel tail.
A squirrel, I'm gonna say 75 cents.
Maybe a couple free fishing lures.
Yeah, 15 cents a squirrel tail. There's just no money in trapping anymore at all. We've been hearing that, but this just kind of brought it to light because we've had some guests recently, Flip, that were talking about at one time you could get a lot of money for some of these skins.
Yeah, we've interviewed folks that paid for their college, like a couple $100. I mean, and in the 70s and 80s, that went a lot farther than it does now,
I'll never forget when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. My mom made me a sandwich, and it was a ham sandwich. I'll never forget. It was I ate half of this ham sandwich, and my dad was like, "Let's go put that in the trap and see what we can catch." So we put the half of the ham sandwich in the backyard. Next morning, we woke up, and there was a red fox in there.
Oh, man.
And so my dad's a banker. And he was like, we took it to the land and let it go and didn't think anything about it. I thought it was really cool. It was the first, animal to trap. And then my dad goes to work and comes home that night and says, we could have sold that thing for $500 back then. I mean, whether it was to a fox farm or something like that, but I mean, now there's nothing in pelts or animals or anything like that.
Flip, have you ever, in all your outdoor adventures, have you ever gotten into trapping?
No, I really haven't. I haven't. I guess I'm too soft-hearted.
I kind of get that because I've been doing a little trapping, and you kind of have to take a deep breath, and some of it is kind of tough, but you just got to do what you got to do, I guess. So.
I wonder if it's from like childhood movies that like make you a little soft on these animals.
Probably.
It's ingrained almost.
It is a life, so people think about that.
Yeah.
The way I see it, a lot of those animals have a great life.
Well, I like to hear people like Flip just said. I mean, I think it says something if you have if you're just not a cold-blooded killer. You think about taking a life. There's something to that. So, let's move.
I think if you keep pets of any kind, I think that softens you a little bit and gives you a different perspective, perhaps.
Right. I've always passed up bobcats when I'm deer hunting and stuff, and this year I've got a little new place I've been working on, and I had a turkey nest that was there that I don't know what happened to it, but I've been seeing this one bobcat on my camera like every day. So he may not get a pass this year. We'll just have to see.
Well, I'm wishing him luck.
So, Flip, before we get started with this, I noticed on your Instagram page, which I would encourage everybody to follow, Flip Pallot, it was kind of a tribute to your friend Lefty Kreh. What's going on today?
Today would have been his birthday, and so I don't know. He's been gone now 7 years or so or more, but still on his birthday, I think of him. I think of him every day. I actually try to say his name every single day, just in case he can hear it. I don't know, but I try to say his name every day, and on his birthday every year. On social media, I try to post something about him because I know that there are thousands of people like myself who consider Lefty to have been a huge influence on their lives. He certainly was on mine over the course of 50 or 60 years. So anyway, I just remembered him this morning with a bunch of artist sketches that I've collected over the years, sketches of Lefty by different artists, and posted that on media just to kind of say hi to him, just in case.
Yeah. I love I love that thought, and I love your Instagram page in general. You're pretty diverse in what you post, and I mean, he's a man's man. He just is. I like all that stuff.
Yeah, and I can appreciate. I've lost a couple of friends recently, and when you lose them, you realize how much your friends are like family, or you even get closer to some of your friends than family.
Yes, sir.
And losing a great friend can be just as impactful, if not more impactful than. Maybe losing I know this sounds terrible, but maybe losing a closer family member that you're not really that close to.
Well, they're the people that you chose, and they're the people who chose you. They're, unlike family, not to take away from family, certainly.
Sure.
But they are the people that you choose, and they are the people who often had the very biggest effect on your life. Certainly that was the case with Lefty and I. There's never been anyone in my life who had that sort of lasting effect or meaningful effect on how I live every single day of my life. And there are literally, if you knew Lefty, there are thousands of people who feel exactly the same way. So here's to all those folks today. I know they're thinking the same thing that I am.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff right there. So let's kind of turn our thoughts. So we want to look back at you, talk to you. We want to talk turkeys at first here this morning. Um, can you remember back to what got you interested in turkey hunting? And
Oh, sure, absolutely. Uh, I'm not sure how ethical this really was, but it started. I grew. I think the statute of limitations may have run on this anyway. I'll take a chance.
You're not the only one, Flip. So keep going.
uh, well, back in my extreme youngerhood, I mean, back when I was 13, 14 years old, I had my first opportunity to go into the big cypress swamp west of where I grew up in South Florida. And there were Osceola turkeys there. I didn't know that they were Osceola turkeys. They were just turkeys. And an older friend of mine who sort of took me under his wing had a small beagle that loved to trail turkeys. And this friend of mine would take the beagle and put him on a gobbler track facing the right way because the beagle would trail the turkey either way. So he'd get him set on the track in the right direction. And this dog had real short little beagle legs, and there was a lot of water in the swamp there. But this beagle could follow a turkey through the water, through shallow water, where they would just be walking. And he would yip on the trail. And I guess the turkeys would just get used to the sound of this dog behind them because he was so slow. But eventually, you know how turkeys will walk a while and then mess around and stop and get in the shade. And anyway, eventually the turkey would catch up to the gobbler or more than one gobbler. And the bird would fly up into a nearby cypress tree. And everybody in South Florida carried either a 22 Magnum or a 22 Hornet. That was just sort of the official gun of all people in Florida back then. And we would, I mean, I'm certainly not bragging about this, but we would shoot them out of the tree with a 22. I had borrowed some money from my dad to buy an old pickup truck out of an estate an estate of a friend or father or something. And it was an old GMC pickup truck that was pretty much a wreck, but still ran. And back then in Florida, if you operated farm equipment as a kid, you could get your regular driving license at 14. So we all did that, and we all, or some of us had. So anyway, I was selling these spurs, and we netted mullet at night and sold them to the bait shops. And I was paying my dad back for lending me the money to buy that pickup.
how about that? I bet that was some good times. So back in
yeah.
a child, I mean, I would have loved to see what that big cypress looked like then, because I bet there's probably been some changes, but that's a beautiful part of the world down there.
Yes, it is. Very, very different.
Probably incredibly remote at times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was, when you were talking about that dog, following the turkey through the shallow water, I'm thinking about alligators and stuff. Was there a thought of that ever happening?
I guess there was a thought. It never did happen, but we were close behind the dog with our 22s, so we didn't worry too much about it. They certainly were. You know, there are a lot more alligators now than there ever were then. I don't remember alligators as a threat of any kind when I was young. People killed alligators almost whenever they came across them. Today they're really protected, almost completely protected in many places. They do have seasonal hunting, but in many places you can't hunt them at all. And in those places, the alligators are out of control.
Yeah. Well, we hear that a lot of places. Louisiana is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Flip. So let's fast forward. You've been you're a legendary fishing guide. I'm sure your springs are spent a lot of time poling people around in a boat or fishing yourself. But so how did you come to the spring turkey hunt and making time for that to the level you hunt them now? Because the hunt that you go, the way you hunt them now with your camp is much different than back when you were a child.
Well, even during the years that I guided hunters as well as anglers. And so in the spring, that was a time that was always reserved for turkeys. And it continues to be now. I mean, even now, I mean, we're a month ahead of our turkey season here in Florida, but I'm in the woods pretty much every single morning listening and watching. And I find that this time of year is as much fun for me anymore as the heart of the turkey season, just being able to listen to them and watch them before anybody has been in the woods to bother them. And our turkeys are already gobbling and in full strut and breeding. So it's an exciting time around here.
I love February. I totally agree with you. You generally have fewer people in the woods, and you can just kind of have free reign and look for sign and just kind of stroll around and enjoy the day.
Exactly.
Do you have a lot of wild pigs in that area where you hunt?
Bobby, you're not going to. Nobody is going to believe this, but an hour ago, my wife came running in here and grabbed me and hauled me downstairs to look out the window at a bunch of hogs rooting up some ryegrass that she planted this winter. And she was absolutely insistent that I go out and kill these hogs. This was an hour ago in my backyard, which is kind of the woods. So I had my underwear on, and I slipped out to the garage, walking behind the trucks and everything so that these hogs couldn't see me. I got my bow. This was an hour ago. And I shot a hog. I knew I had this podcast. I didn't have time to go trail him. But as soon as this is over, I have to go outside into the woods and find a hog that I shot an hour ago. So yes, we have hogs in the yard just about every day. And luckily I live in an oak hammock, a typical Central Florida oak hammock. And there's a cypress swamp right out behind the hammock where the turkeys roost almost every night. So if I get up early in the morning to have coffee and go outside, I get to listen to the turkeys every morning before they fly down. And then I get to listen to them actually fly down and then listen to what they say when they hit the ground and what they don't say when they hit the ground. And so almost every day of my life is like Turkey University. So I'm very, very lucky in that regard. And it's funny that you asked about the hogs, because as soon as this is over, I got to put boots on and get in the woods and find this hog.
Oh, I wish I could be with you and go do that and trail with you.
I'll send pictures.
Yeah. Was that your first time to kill something in your underwear?
It may have been.
Oh, my goodness. Well, can you remember the first time you participated in a hunt and maybe watched somebody call up a turkey, or you called up a turkey? How did that affect you?
Yeah, when did that transition take place from beagling behind the man about town to calling him up?
No, I remember it. I remember every second of it. And I know that all of us who are on this Zoom call, and anybody listening to it, or they wouldn't be listening to it, are moved by the fact that you can speak to a wild animal in any way at all. But most especially speak to him in a way that will cause him to come to you, um, it's almost indescribable how you feel when you actually cross that bridge or see it crossed. And I certainly remember the first time was another man in my life, older man in my life, who made a big difference, and showed me that whole phenomenon of speaking to animals. And there was another such man that showed me about deer and elk. And I've been very lucky in my life to have lefties around and people like Lefty to share these things with me. And I try to do the same thing myself at this point in my life.
Dudley, you got a question?
Well, you asked all the ones I was really wanting to ask, but so roughly
Well,
what
then I can go look for that hog then.
yeah. So I mean, I kind of just want to know about your style when you are out in the spring woods hunting. You know, everybody, just like artists, they seem to develop a style over time. And I'm just wondering if you kind of have a particular style about, you know, when you start listening, what are some methods you use or don't use compared to the rest of us?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't consider myself a really great expert. I just
Which is fine.
I do know this. I listen to these turkeys all year long. It's something that I do because I just love to do it, and I have it so closely available, so easily available. And I've never been really good with friction calls. And the first calls that I learned to use were diaphragm calls. And so that's my style of hunting is with diaphragm calls. And what I notice on the birds that I get to observe mostly is that all year long they kiki. It's not a fall thing, at least amongst the birds that I observe. Turkeys, I think, kiki all day long. I think it's a social thing that when they are even slightly separated, they kiki just to keep in touch. And so if my style includes anything that might be unusual, and because I use a mouth call, which is so easy to kiki with, that call is something that I use a lot with a great deal of success for me.
Yeah, really, truly, you do hear that if you pay attention to it. A lot of guys don't incorporate that into their repertoire of calls, but it makes a lot of sense too. We've been talking with some guys lately that we had a couple of gentlemen on, and we've really kind of, a lot of people have come back around to the importance of calling softly. And we had Bill Zirin yesterday. He called it a nookie call, and the way it's just a really super soft yelp.
Yeah.
But you know, in today's times, a lot of guys are just trying to see how loud they can get and try to elicit a gobble from a turkey a long way away. But I think some of our guests recently have pointed out the importance of that soft calling. I bet you could speak to that too.
Well, you know, as someone who just listens a lot, that's all I hear. I don't ever hear them making loud calls. The sort of loud calls that I hear hunters make. They do cut, of course, and that's, I guess, probably the loudest thing that I hear them do.
Do you hear them do the fly down cackle every morning, or is that just certain mornings that they get carried away?
No, I don't hear it every morning. I do hear them fly down. I'm close enough to hear that, and I don't hear the cackle every morning. So I would have to say no. Maybe they don't do it all the time when they fly down or up.
Yeah, Mac, you got.
Yeah, so just not everybody's lucky or blessed enough to live on a place where they can listen to turkeys every morning. Do you recall a time of year, you're in Central Florida, where it seems like the switch has been flipped and the breeding has begun, or the communication, the sounds are changing, or is it pretty consistent? I mean, once you start, getting closer to spring, like it February 1st, does something change, or, is that dependent on the year or the weather, or have you noticed anything like that, being able to listen to them?
Sure. And that's a great question and a great thing to think about. I find it to be very, very consistently the late middle of February before I start hearing gobbles every morning. I've heard gobbles in January. I know you have, and in December there's something that'll cause them to gobble. But with regard to breeding in Central Florida, anyway, I find the late middle of February the time when the gobbler groups break up and morning gobbling becomes the norm, and they fly down with hens. That's almost always, and I think turkey season wise, I think whether they did it with wisdom or by accident, the Florida Freshwater Fish and Game Commission set the dates so that the better birds can get bred and breed before hunting season begins, which for us is the middle of March. So it gives them a month of breeding activity before anybody gets in the woods killing them.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things. They have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Lanny, we're always in here. We always have these interesting guests, and you're always on your computer. What's up?
I'm looking at Onyx the whole time. I love that, but I love the desktop too.
My favorite thing is Bobby doesn't know how to shut his computer down, so I can go in there and share his pins to my account.
That's what you were doing in there this morning.
Yep.
Back during deer season, I shot a couple of big bucks.
Of course.
As I'm looking for them, I can turn on this tracking feature.
Yeah.
And I can see where I've looked.
And I use that feature too for spreading seeds, spreading fertilizer, spraying. It really keeps you on track.
Onyx is a great company. Look, we know Jared. They're hunters.
They
just
are.
like we are.
Yes,
so they're
no
serious
doubt
about
about
this. The way they've designed this thing, a hunter and a gamekeeper can take advantage of it and make their property better.
Use coupon code Mossy Oak to save 20% off of your Onyx subscription.
Yeah, and Mac, you shouldn't do that now. Richie, you got to help me. Okay.
Hey y'all, Jim Ronquist here with Drake Waterfowl and Old Tom Turkey Products, talking about some of the new lineup for this spring. One of the more popular is the SWT collection, or Spiderweb technology. This is a highly breathable micro-vented stretch fabric for maximum silent mobility with a durable water repellent finish that'll keep you cool and keep you dry and keep you going in the spring woods. Be sure and check it out at a dealer near you or drakewaterfowl.com/Old Tom.
Well, yeah, that's a good question, Mike, and I think that kind of applies everywhere as the seasons open going further north. There's been a lot. I'd like to think it's wisdom in the way that some of these seasons have been set, but we're learning now that some of them may be arriving just a little bit early, and I think some states are adjusting.
And then what's interesting is just their breeding and how long that they can, I guess, hold on to that procreation. And like how long that turkey can hold on to those eggs. And then, I mean, when do they actually start? That's always just fascinated me because you hear folks say, well, oh man, they've been gobbling since February 1st. They're going to be done by the time March 15th opens. But you got to think that it's not like a deer, like an estrus,
Right.
the way I can understand it. It's not like they're all coming into heat at the same time. So, I mean, it could be happening in February and it could be happening in May, I mean, I don't know. I've just always been curious about that.
Gosh, I mean, birds breed and will have, most birds will have multiple attempts if they're not successful the first time. But like you said, I think the female can hold the sperm for several weeks. I'm not a biologist, but
I do have one question for you, Mr. Flip. So you were essentially like a Mickey Mantle, Tiger Woods in the fly fishing world. I mean, I remember growing up watching your shows, and I think it's really neat. But have you ever caught a snook or a redfish or a speckled trout, and then in that same trip gone and harvested a turkey? Like, are you ever throw a shotgun in the boat just because you think there might be a chance one will gobble close?
No, you know what? I don't guess I can say that I've done that. So that gives me something to look forward to.
The cast and blast.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do that redfish trip where you can hunt ducks, or whatever. But the turkey would be awesome.
Well, now there are a lot of opportunities where you can bass fish or panfish and hunt for turkeys. That's something, but I don't know about snook or redfish and turkeys. Perhaps in Texas there are places where you could do that.
I would bet that would be the place around Corpus and all that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, flipping all these experiences you've got down in South Florida, have you ever encountered one of these Florida panthers?
Yes, I have. Actually, I've seen a number of lions and seen them in different parts of Florida too. South Florida, when I was a kid, particularly Southwest Florida, really had a lot of panthers, or lions as we always called them. And up here in Central Florida, I've seen them on 2 or 3 occasions. They're if you spend time in the woods in Florida, you're going to see lions and bears. We've got probably way too many bears. At least that's my conclusion. I mean, I think if you went anywhere in the woods around Central Florida and throw corn on the ground and put a camera there, it wouldn't be 24 hours before you found a bear on your camera. So there are lots of bears, occasional lions, but lots and lots of bears.
Yeah, I remember there was they brought the black bear hunt back a few years ago. I've got a customer that I talk to on the phone all the time, and he was informing me about it. And I'm not sure if it's gone on since, but I want to say they filled the quota like in 2 or 3 days. They allotted a certain amount of black bears that could be taken out. And then people went out, and that's probably what was happening. If they were allowed to hunt in their backyard, that's pretty common in Florida for people to have a bunch of woods back there. But I want to say they killed 300 or 400 bears in just a couple of days.
It was actually less than a couple of days. I think it was almost hours before the quota was filled, and they really couldn't stop it. There was no way they could reach all the hunters to let them know that the quota had been reached. And so a lot more bears were killed. It created a big problem with environmentalists or whoever they were, but it was a big hue and cry. And this has been now, I'm trying to think, it's probably 10 years ago. And we haven't had a bear hunt since.
Wow, time flies.
It strikes me how diverse Florida is. There's a lot of animals down there, and that Florida Fish and Wildlife Department, they're managing a lot of different critters, and then they're managing saltwater critters, fish as well. What a diverse department.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think for the most part, they do a pretty good job considering that they have so much to deal with and considering how quickly Florida is growing, developing, and losing its natural world. I mean, it's alarming how quickly we're losing it in Florida.
It's a lot to juggle down there for sure.
So, Mr. Flip, if I was there, in your office, your shop there, and you had a turkey vest, and I started looking, what would I find in your turkey vest?
Well, probably Baby Ruth candy bars in most of the pockets, and then mouth calls. My cell phone. Honest to God, I have to tell you that I don't even have a turkey vest. I have a little haversack, an old military haversack that I carry a few things in. But for me, turkey hunting is pretty much a day trip. I really don't take that much into the woods with me. I do take a bottle of water. You'd find that in there. I don't know. That's about it.
Are you immune to the mosquitoes down there? Or do you have any tricks for keeping them off of you? Because that's the worst. I mean, sitting on a big old tree and a turkey's gobbling and you hear the buzzing in your ear, and I can imagine down where you are, it's probably pretty bad.
You know what, though? Fortunately, in the springtime in Florida, the mosquitoes aren't really that bad. Summertime, sometimes they can be unbearable almost, but luckily in the spring, it's really not that bad. And a little bit of DEET goes a long ways. Yeah, it's just lucky. It's just springtime isn't that bad.
Gosh, you need to be careful. You're going to have folks moving down there. No mosquitoes. Wow.
Well, they're going to have to struggle to find room. It's really getting, I mean, at least in Central Florida, things are really getting crazy. And I'm not sure what's driving it, whether it's the resurgence of the space industry or people being unhappy with other parts of the country and moving here. But you can almost stand there and watch neighborhoods spring up out of the ground. It's frightening.
Would you say you're more particular with the fly on the end of your line or the call that's in the palm of your hand?
No, it's definitely all about the call.
I was expecting you to tell me that you had a box call, some kind of box call or some slate call or something that you had in your pocket that you would pull out occasionally.
Yeah, no, I do have one. I do, and I use for a friction call. I use a glass call, and I use it very, very softly, the same way I use the mouth call, very, very softly. But I do have a friction call usually with me. But I think, as opposed to lots of turkey hunters, I really don't take very much in the woods with me.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. So when you close your eyes at night, is there one turkey hunt that runs through your mind that you remember? One that a really good story you could tell us?
That's probably not that great a story, but 2 years ago, I took Diane, my wife, who loves to go in the woods with me, and who goes fishing with me all the time. And we were along the St. Johns River marsh, and we were sitting outside of a tree island, and I had heard turkeys there the day before, and took her early in the morning, and we leaned against the palm tree and put a couple of cabbage fans in the ground in front of us to make a little bit of a blind. And I started softly calling, and not much was going on. So we were just sitting there, and Diane fell off asleep. And every once in a while I'd call, and she was fast asleep. And all of a sudden a gobbler came walking into the call. I didn't have any decoy or anything. He just came, he surprised me. And he got to about, I guess, 20 or 30 steps away. And I have a little, it's just a single shot 410. And I've been shooting this tungsten out of it, the number 9.5 tungsten BBs out of it. And it's amazing. That little gun will really kill turkeys. And Diane was fast asleep and the turkey was right there. I really didn't have any time to do anything about alerting her to the fact that the turkey was there. So anyway, I shot the turkey and the gun going off woke her up, and she woke up and simultaneously to waking up began hitting me. I don't know what she thought. So I'm trying to keep track of this turkey and dodge these blows from my wife at the same time. That's the most recent memorable turkey hunt that I could, although I've had many with Diane over the years.
That's great. I think I've had that happen, where you wake up swinging, something startles you.
Oh, definitely.
I'm curious, was she swinging because you didn't let her shoot the turkey or because she was frightened?
No, Mac, that wasn't it. I think she was pissed.
Have you ever tied any flies with any turkey feathers? Yeah,
sure. I use all kind of, what's really, I'm trying to think of if you look at the lower breast feathers on a turkey, and pull one out, there's a tremendous amount of marabou attached to the bottom of that feather. And that marabou makes terrific bonefish flies, but it also makes terrific shad flies for the springtime shad run on the St. Johns River. So yeah, I use turkey feathers, and I use a lot. I used turkey feathers, duck feathers, deer tails, all that sort of thing. Anything I can find. Hair from our pet cat.
I'm laughing at that story because I'm sure she probably wanted to watch or participate in that hunt a little more than that. But going back to the 410s, it's remarkable with today's shells how efficient those little guns are. It's really amazing.
I mean, like when I was growing up, you typically shot like number 5s or 6s, 3-inch Magnum 12s, and at 45 yards or something, you would be happy with like 4 or 5 pellets in the head and neck area, and nowadays, like you said, I can take my granddad's H&R 410 single shot and have like 20 pellets in the head at 40 yards. It's insane.
It's almost if you shoot 9.5s or 10s in tungsten, two things happen. It's almost like a mist. There are so many BBs. It's almost like a mist going out there. And the other part of it is they're super hard. They're much harder than plated lead or just plain lead. Mm-hmm. So they cut through the feathers really, really well. And it's a single shot 410 with 9.5s or 10s BBs is almost a 60-yard gun.
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess much past that, you start getting pellets in the meat, and we can talk about ethics, but I'm not going to get into that. But they're killers for sure. And
unbelievable, and
ethical
no
killers.
recoil, and they're easy to carry in the woods. It's another world.
It's funny to think about this generation of kids coming up with the equipment with 410s, the guns and the red dots and the tungsten shells. They're not going to have to, as soon as they pull the trigger, get up and chase that turkey down. I mean, because I know growing up for me, I mean, that's what you did.
That was the rule.
I mean, whoever you were with was getting up and chasing the turkey. And now, I mean, that turkey had a quick, it's a quick process.
Yeah.
I mean,
what do you guys think about? What is your opinion of the red dots and the scopes and everything on shotguns?
I'll answer first. I used to joke about them until I missed 2 turkeys in a row and realized I had astigmatism, and the red dot helps me tremendously.
Yeah.
That's a scope, right?
It's a 1 power. So it's just this little bitty piece of glass you're looking through with a red 3 MOA dot on it.
Right.
Go ahead, Mac.
Oh, I was going to say, I made I got a gun that shot when I patterned it high and right. And it was pretty consistent high and right. And so I put a red dot on it. And last year was the first year that I used it. And I really enjoyed it. It makes me a little nervous. But when you think, I mean, you're in some uncomfortable positions sometimes when you have the right ethical shot opportunity. I mean, you might have to be cocked around a tree or something like that. And you got to think that having that dot there gives you the ability to make a better shot. There's definitely some, I feel like there's negatives. You can bump it, you can knock it off the battery. Yeah, there's all that kind of stuff. But I do think that it gives you an opportunity to make a cleaner shot in uncomfortable situations
and super tight patterns.
Yeah. So I've always shot just bare beads. Now I had rifle sights, had some green glowing on the back too, and one red on the front. And I always was very resistant to that, to changing. I loved that because I wanted as much field of view as possible. But last year I got a little Leopold red dot on a 20 gauge, and in low light conditions, that red dot is so bright. I mean, it's like witchcraft. You can kind of cant your head, no matter, as long as you've got that red dot on him, and you've got to sight it in just like a rifle.
Right.
But it's amazing. And with the Leopold, if you held your gun up for 15 or 20 seconds and were just really still, or if you laid it down, it's going to cut off. So you don't have to worry about the battery going dead. But when you move the gun just a little bit, it comes right back on.
Right. And you don't have to get kind of down on the gun as much. In my perspective, I was a little hesitant about the reflection aspect of it. Like if the sun catches it right. I mean, it is a piece of glass, so
with a coating.
Yeah. So that made me a little nervous, but I mean, I was pretty successful last year using it. I feel like. What do you think, Mr. Phillip?
Well, I can see that you don't want to know what I think.
No, I think we were all there with you. Go ahead, though.
No. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a better tool, especially with all the chokes that have been invented and the tight patterns that everybody believes in nowadays. As Dudley said, the pellets in the meat and that sort of thing. And there's no doubt that all these different sights are better tools and cleaner kills. There's no doubt about that.
But yeah, I think you're probably going to say you'd prefer to get them close, and I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure we all do, and yeah. It's to me, it's and of course I'm a lot older than you guys, so those things didn't exist when I was coming up turkey hunting, so I never got used to them. Never, but to me it's like a robo-duck. Or,
I get it.
Using a mounted turkey or something like that. I think we're smarter than turkeys. Well, most turkeys. But it's just, what I think it's like this, it's like the comparison between a compound bow or a crossbow and a real bow.
Correct.
It's compounds are wonderful. They're incredible devices. And the thing is, they bring people into the woods. And so no matter what you use, no matter what you think, these things that bring us closer to the natural world are all good things.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna, I would probably never mount a red dot on the top of my 1927 Model 12.
There
But
you go.
on my, on my newer single shot 20 gauge that's been dipped in mossy oak, I'm going to put the red dot on, and I'm probably not going to try to take a shot that's past 45 yards if I can help it.
Go girl.
That's just my thing.
Absolutely.
Well, so I had a 20 gauge, a new one that I got a couple of years ago. I really loved, little small gun, and it had the rifle sights, and the apex shells that I was shooting shot high out of it, and I could not adjust that sight enough to where I was comfortable with it. It just wouldn't. There was not enough adjustment in it. But now I could go back and shoot. There were some other loads I could shoot that didn't shoot as high, but I really wanted to shoot these number 9s, and so I put the red dot on it, and it solved all my problems. And so there's a way that it helped for sure for me.
Those apex loads are unbelievable. I've never seen anything so consistent and so well made and well delivered as those things. They really take a lot of pride in what they do, and they do it really, really well.
I actually went to high school with one of the founders in Columbus.
Yeah,
they're not right across the road.
Yeah, they're not far from us at all. We do a lot of stuff with them, and you hit the nail on the head. They take a lot of pride in making a good product. So Flip, one of our listeners, actually a guy named Brent Lockala, who's a big fan of yours, he wanted me to ask, are you far from this wildlife corridor that they're talking about in Florida?
I'm not even familiar with it.
Well, they're talking about making from the very far south Florida, where I guess Big Cypress probably in that world, but they're trying to lock together private properties that could create a corridor that would go all the way up into North Florida, up into Georgia, where if a Florida panther wanted to migrate into Georgia, he could.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
You've seen it in Europe. I've seen photos of it in different places, like where they'll make a big bridge that crosses a difficult area, and it's all natural. And I think this would just be a much bigger version of that.
Yeah,
so they're wanting to buy up some private land, or turn a lot of contiguous cattle ground that's fenced and cross-fenced into habitat. So some of these critters that used to travel a lot farther.
It's 18 million acres.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's supposed to be very beneficial to the wild turkeys. Marcus was telling us about how much of it was turkey habitat.
It's so interesting. I mean, it makes sense because, I mean, you think everybody's got beach houses on the Atlantic side, and then everybody's got beach houses on the Gulf of America side. So, I mean, now you just have that. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah.
It would be something really, really wonderful for Florida if it could happen.
Okay, Flip, I've got one of the guys, a fellow named Justin Carpenter, and boy, he is a reprobate. But do you remember back when we deer hunted, we provided you some Drake rut wears, what it was. I think you enjoyed wearing that stuff, if I'm not.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. So he works for that company, and he is of all places, he's from Nebraska, but he's a big Flip Pallot fan. And he wanted me to ask the question, and he said, take muskies and permit out of the equation. But is there one fish that it is your fish? It's the fish that just speaks to you the most.
Absolutely. Actually, there are two that speak equally. One is the snook, and the other would be a bonefish. And I love the snook because of where he lives, mostly. I mean, he lives in the Everglades and other parts of the state that are very much like the Everglades. And so as much as I admire the fish, I admire his house. The other fish is bonefish, and that would be because of the degree of difficulty to fly fish for bone, or fish in any way for bonefish. They're just terribly difficult to fly fish for, and there are so many different ways to fish for them so many different circumstances that you find yourself in fishing for bonefish. So those would be the two fish that call to me equally, I would say.
Yeah, that's
Love
it. I was expecting that bonefish, but the snook makes a lot of sense too. I've never gotten a chance. I've turkey hunted in Florida around Lake Okeechobee a fair amount. You and I talked. I think we've hunted near each other, near some of the same ground.
Yes.
But I've never really experienced the Everglades. I would like to go and see that at some point and fish that.
Well, maybe
So it's very, very different turkey hunting in the Everglades as opposed to around Lake Okeechobee, where a lot of the hunting that you do for turkeys is in open country, pastures, cow pastures, open hammocks that are open underneath and you can see quite a ways. Very, very different in the Everglades or in the Big Cypress where I grew up turkey hunting. They almost magically appear because you can't see them coming at all. And there are other woods in the United States that are very much like that, I'm sure, where they just appear. But the lower part of Florida, where the true Osceola turkeys are, very, very different than Central Florida, where I find myself right now.
Florida is a special place, and the way it kicks off turkey season. I mean, there's so many people that travel to Florida right now in anticipation of killing an Osceola. It's a bucket list bird for a lot of people.
it is.
Yeah, and he's got them in his backyard. He's living with them every day. Yeah. So hey, Flip, before I forget it, since we met, you've been on our mailing list to get the Gamekeeper magazine. What do you think about our magazine?
Guys do a hell of a job with that magazine, really do. There's, it's funny that you asked that. I was thinking about it the other day. I was reading about property management in that magazine, and I got to thinking about how much varied information can be found in that magazine. And then I started thinking about, well, I wonder what these guys are going to do, because this was the first one that I had seen. So I started thinking about what the heck are these guys going to do in the next magazine? They've got so much in here, they've covered everything. It's a great magazine, and the presentation, I mean, the quality of the printing and the quality of the pages and the material that it's, everything about it is really excellent.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Well, if you ever wanted to submit an article, I do know a guy that might be able to approve it if it's any good.
Yeah, well, let's see what we can do about that. I'd like that.
Flip, we have a lot of fun with you. Before we let you go and go retrieve the hog that you no doubt ran an arrow through this morning, we always ask our guest a trivia question. We have fun with this, and somebody has won a prize, but I'm going to turn it over to Richie now. Richie, wake up over there if you don't mind.
I'm up in the live over here. I'm back here. So, yeah, winner today is Bodacious Outdoors. That was our listener today.
Okay.
And they won right here. They got a turtle box.
Oh, my gosh. So today's the day we're giving away that turtle box.
I thought I was getting the turtle
I'm
box.
so jealous.
I thought I was getting the turtle box.
Well, no. So Bodacious was
Bodacious Outdoors.
So he left a review, and we randomly picked his review.
It must have been a good review then.
And congratulations to him. If he'll get in touch with us, we'll get that turtle. Those things are really – Flip, have you seen these turtle box things?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
What all can you use that thing for, Richie?
Well, there's multiple things you can use it for. Out there you can stick it on your boat, like your Avid boat right there we're giving away. You can take it out in the woods with you. There's all kinds of aspects you can use it for.
So while we're here, Flip, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and I forgot to write down, I see these posts that you do about your camp. Could you describe your hunting camp a little bit for us?
Well, it's in Central Florida, and it's basically in a traditional Florida oak hammock with huge amounts of Spanish moss hanging down. And it's a typical hunt camp with a fire ring and a place for people to sit around in the evenings after hunting and tell stories and make things up and think about the next season that's coming. And it's a very, very typical traditional hunt camp. And the best part about it for me is that it's only about 45 minutes away from home.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need to get home, I can get home. If Diane wants to come out to camp and have a meal or just sit around and visit, she'll do that. It's a place where we spend usually the 4th of July, where we spend Thanksgiving, we spend New Year's there, and we'll get there Christmas Day afternoon. And so it's for me, hunt camp is more than some place that I hang out in deer season. It's some place that's central to the entire year.
Good answer.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. It looks like a cool place to hang out. I bet there's been a.
I can smell the food just by looking at your Instagram.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah.
You guys are invited.
All right, Richie, we're going to have to edit that now. We can't be throwing this everybody can't go down there with me now, you know.
With you.
So let's get things back on track here. So Bodacious Outdoors won the Turtle Box. Congratulations.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right, so Flip, grab your handles on your chair there. We've got a trivia question for you. Now, this one's a good one.
All right.
Let her rip.
All right. So keeping up with all our other questions here of different groups of animals. You know, we had a group of a murder of crows, a pride of lions, etc.
Yeah. So like in a group of possums is called what was that?
Passel.
A passel of possums. Yeah. And what was the sandhill cranes were called? A group of them were called a sedge.
A sedge.
So a lot of these animals have interesting names when they're in a group. And so here's the question.
All right, Flip, what is a group of flamingos called?
Wow.
It's a collective noun. Hint.
Wow. A collective noun. God, I have got to plead ignorance in spite of the fact that I've been watching groups of flamingos all my life, and a group.
No, not quite.
No, I give up.
It starts the same way. It starts the same way a flamingo starts. Sometimes Dudley is described this way.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he is.
A flamer.
A flake.
Flamboyance.
A flamboyance.
Oh my God!
Of
Which is
flamingos.
That's the perfect name.
A flamboyance.
That's the perfect name, and I failed.
Well, now you know.
You know, Flip, a lot of our guests, we can see them Googling when we ask the question. We can see them Googling. But I knew you wouldn't. It was all we could do to get you on the Zoom, so I knew you weren't going to be Googling at the same time you're Zooming.
Only because I don't know how.
Oh, my goodness. That was a good question, though.
I've always heard that flamingos are pink because of the amount of shrimp they eat. You think there's
That's true.
It is true.
It's keratin that they get from eating crustaceans. Yeah.
That's good. Well, we learned something today.
We did.
So, yeah. Well, Mac, has anybody got any more questions?
I got one. I'll jump in there. Have you ever hunted turkeys with your longbow?
Yeah, I have. That's mostly what I've done.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. I think over the years, I've killed 47 turkeys with a bow.
Holy camole.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that
we missed that.
Not always a longbow. Sometimes a recurve, but usually a longbow. And total over the years of 47.
Wow.
That's impressive. Yeah, hit the horns for that. So, when we were with you at Jeff's, I just remarked at how talented you were with that longbow. And it was like artistry to watch you shoot this bow. And you make so much of your own equipment. I wanted to ask you, have you ever considered like putting a flint napped arrowhead on there and trying to kill a deer with a primitive arrowhead?
I have not done that, but I have friends who have done that, and I have another friend who has helped me make my own bows in the past. And my skill with a longbow is just the result of having been shooting one since I was 12 or 13 years old, pretty seriously shooting one. And I'm a member of a fairly active group of people who shoot traditional bows. And I try every morning to shoot at least one arrow. And so it's not so much skill, it's just a long lifetime of doing it repetitiously. But it's been archery has been a wonderful part of my life, and hunting with a bow, although I hunt with a gun as well. I bored Richie with all that. But the longbow is a big part of it all for me.
Well, it's amazing to watch you shoot. It truly is beautiful. Well, look, so I've got a quote here. We'll kind of wrap this thing up. This was a quote I thought everybody could kind of sink their teeth into.
I'm really liking your quotes lately. Keep them going.
So this was from a guy named Alfred Pease. And it was from, he's got a book called The Book of the Line, but this quote really spoke to me. It says, "The most and best is known to the man who quits his bed before sunrise, who spends his days on the mountains and the forest, who bears the heat and the cold and the hunger and the thirst for the love of nature, to visit the utmost refuges of beast and bird." Thought that was good.
Mm-hmm.
That's all of us, isn't it?
It is. It made me think of you, Flip, because that's kind of been your life.
It's all of us.
Yeah.
But, you don't necessarily have to be an early riser. You can stay up. You can do the afternoon thing and into the night.
Absolutely.
And still be a hardcore outdoors person.
Yeah, Dudley doesn't like the early mornings, and Dudley likes to take a nap in the afternoon. So he's kind of limited there. So.
But I still like to be outside. So
there you go. That's what's important. Well, Mr. Flip, we are all just big fans of you. I would encourage people to go to social media. It's just Flip Pallot on Instagram. You can find him, and there's just really good posts.
A lot of cool adventures, a lot of cool settings, a lot of friends. It's neat.
I want to thank you guys for putting up with me again. And aside from that, all you guys do for the outdoors and for the rest of us, I hope you know how much it's appreciated by us all.
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. That means a lot coming from you. Well, I don't know what's left to be said. We've kept him along. He's got a blood trail to go tend to. And please send pictures. Let us know how that turns out.
I will. I sure will. Promise.
Yep. And tell Diane we said hello. And I'm sure she has to put up with a lot, it sounds like.
Yes, sir. I'll do it. And repeated thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Flip.
All right. Looking around the room, why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley. Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.